his role kind of shake out?
You know, he had a role in Miami where he was very tied into the coaching staff and what they were doing, but also some personnel stuff. So this time of year, he'll be more personnel driven, bringing us, you know, some analytical stuff and models and things like that, and just basically putting a lot of data together that we do with grades and testing numbers and things like that. Just another checks and balances. And then in season, he'll work a little closer, less with personnel and more with the coaches in the game planning process. And, you know, we'll look at game management and things like that. So he'll touch a lot of different areas along with Luis. So we just look at it as adding another piece and try and grow what we've already started in analytics.
Jordan Phillips was telling us at the end of the year that his guys had already been in talks with you guys. Are the lines of communication still open there? Or?
Yeah, definitely. We've had a good conversation with Jordan at the end of the year and talked to his representatives a couple times, and they're here. We have not met with them yet, but definitely would be interested in bringing Jordan back and like the energy that he brought our team mid-season when we acquired him.
Hey, Brandon, can you share with us what you think Ken Dorsey will be able to do with Josh Allen, a guy who's only 37, he's a quarterback's mechanical type of coach. What can he do to help Josh?
You know, I've been around Ken, you know, for a number of years. He actually started in Carolina, kind of in a personnel role, and I thought he was going to go that way and was doing a heck of a job. But then he became the quarterback coach. Rob Chudzinski left. Mike Shula was promoted to coordinator, and just Ken's experience. I know he hung around the league, not only because, you know, his accolades at Miami and things like that, but he was a super smart guy. And I know coaches on the staffs that he played on talked about this guy is like another coach. He's a future wannabe. And getting to know Ken, he was a big part of helping Cam grow and mature. You know, he got his hands on him early. And I think, you know, Cam would be the first to tell you he was a big part of his success and, you know, helped him. Cam had the MVP season in 2015. And Ken's a smart guy. It's another chance for him to be around a young guy. And obviously there's some similarities to the frame and the athleticism that Cam and Josh have, and so I think he'll work with Josh, and he'll be a good influence as we try and grow him as a young quarterback in this league.
Brandon, how would you describe how the offseason is different when you don't know who your quarterback is going to be when you come to the combine and looking for a guy like that, as opposed to when you have a young guy like Josh in place and now you're looking at the rest of the roster?
Yeah, I sleep a little bit better than it was last year at this time, but it's nice to know that we found a guy that we believe in, and we've got to do the right thing and build around him and add pieces. Obviously on offense, we were better on defense last year than we were on offense, so we'll try to continue to build that. But it'll be much better even when after the draft, when the players get back. You know, we had a 3-quarterback battle last year, which is not ideal. So for Josh to be able to line up with the ones as soon as he gets here in mid-April will just help set the tone for our offense. And, you know, he missed out on some reps that we would have liked to have gotten him had we known he would end up being the one as quick as he was. But it played out the way it is, and obviously that'll help us this year in 19.
Hey, is there such a thing as, in your mind, as a number one receiver? I mean, Sean yesterday said, I want guys who catch the ball. Just everyone says you got to get a number one receiver. Give us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'm not one that subscribes to a number one receiver. Receivers come, it's a position that come in all sorts of sizes. You got the guys that are 6'5", 6'6", and out jumping people and going to the top, and then you got some 5'7", 5'8" guys that are making plays. Even the Super Bowl champion, they've won with those types of guys. So there's a lot of different sizes, flavors, veterans, young guys, speed, size. We're just looking for good football players, good receivers that can make plays and that Josh can count on when he throws them the ball. They're gonna be where they're supposed to be, and they're gonna make the plays.
What's the greatest value of the combine
for us? Obviously, the medical is still super important. A lot of these guys, things will pop up that you don't know about that they've been dealing with, or you're not able to really get much medical stuff on these young men in college. So, and then the second thing is meeting these guys. We get to we have the 60 formal interviews, but there's the train station where we put coaches and scouts over there, and we're just trying to get around and meet as many of these young men as we can and get to know who they are. Culture, as you guys all know, is very important for Sean and I and what we're trying to build. And so the film is one thing, but who's the person? What intrinsically motivates them? What is their smarts? What's their football acumen? What inspires them? All those things that we can't learn from the film.
And as much information as comes out of here, how big of a disadvantage is it for the player who isn't invited here for whatever reason? For you, because you do end up with sometimes looking at those guys too. How do you work with that when you don't have what you get from this?
Yeah, that's hard. I'm one that would love for even more players to be here because there are guys every year that aren't invited to the combine. And I know the young man from Denver last year, the running back, had a really good year, Lindsey, and he was not invited here. And so, believe me, it's probably at its max from a number of people, but from my seat, I'd love to get my hands on as many people as you can just to get to know them and get around them and give them that opportunity to show what they can do. And the same, there's been some controversy about the guys that were disallowed for reasons off the field. At least they were able to come to a compromise to get some of them here for medical and for us to interview them, which was good.
Speaking of shapes and sizes, do you have a comp for DK Metcalf?
Man, he's a big, good-looking young man. I don't know what I don't want to put a label on him like that, but he had a heck of a career, and there's guys that come to mind, but I don't really want to put that label on him. I'd rather not.
In terms of you talk about the #1 wide receiver. Sean mentioned yesterday the importance of the tight end position. Jason Kroom is currently the only guy under contract on the roster. How do you go about evaluating who might be the right fit for Dable and for Josh?
Yeah, first thing is we've paid attention to free agency, the guys that will be available there, and same thing as in the draft. There's some guys that are some really good blockers, but maybe they're not as good as receivers. There's some guys that you really don't want to block in a 6-tech, but they're great in the passing game. So similar to receivers, there's different flavors at tight end, and we've done our homework there. Free agency will be first, but the draft, there's some depth at tight end, from my point of view, and same as free agency. There's some guys that are really good athletes that maybe need to improve their blocking, or maybe they weren't asked to block, so we got to do some more research, and maybe they can once they're taught, but there will be a growth, opportunity for them if given the opportunity, whatever team they're on.
Brandon, what other position?
Speaking of that growth with receivers, do you find that with the spread offenses, you now get a receiver who in some cases has to be taught the route tree, the where and why of the route and those sorts of things? Because I've talked to some coaches who say they've got to start lower now because of that. Most
definitely. Some of these programs now are just signaling to the receivers or maybe even an individual receiver. And that's one of the things that we try to do in the formals is we watch a little tape and we try and find out what they know. And do they not know it because they can't learn it, or do they not know it because they were not taught it? And with the 20-hour rule or whatever it is in the NCAA, a lot of these coaches have gone to that where they've got 3 to 4 different guys that are signaling one to the receivers, one to the backs, one to the line. And so it is, you wish you had these guys growing more development time, and that's part of the process with receivers. And again, tight ends, some of those guys come in the same thing, the ones that are flexed out and not in line with their hand in the dirt.
Brandon, you mentioned tight end as a position of depth. From your perspective, what other spots here at the combine in this draft class do you look at positions of depth?
I think defensive front, I think there's definitely some depth there, it looks like early on. I think there's a lot of receivers too that, again, a lot of different shapes and sizes, but it seems like it's a pretty good group, a pretty good draft class all around. I don't think there's a position that's just wow thin, anything like that.
You mentioned receivers. How much of a surprise was Robert Foster, what he did late in the season? Where does he fit into your plan going forward?
Robert was a great story. Obviously, we had a little inside connection with Brian Daboll and being in Alabama, and what a great deal. We released him early in the year when he wasn't effective and he wasn't able to make plays. He was making plays in practice, but it was not translating, and there were some things that he needed to clean up technically that were causing some of the errors. And the drive that he showed, he didn't even leave town on the bye week because he was so focused on earning that opportunity. And we brought him back up, and the very first play of the first game against the Jets, he makes a long one. And from there, he just took off, and we got Josh back, and those two really formed a nice partnership. And I've seen Robert in town a decent amount. And I know he's from the South, but and it's cold in Buffalo, but I've seen him up there a lot. So I like where his arrow is, and he's really embraced the opportunity, and I look forward to seeing where he goes, in his second season.
Hey, Brandon, you pounced on Spencer Long pretty quickly there as soon as he got released. What led you to Spencer Long? Why did you do that?
Obviously, we were trying to make some moves on our O-line, and Spencer was released by the Jets. And, we watched Spencer last year in the free agent market, and, the Jets bid for him and got him. But he's a guy that has a lot of starts, has experience. He can play multiple spots, center and guard. And so we just look at him as added competition to what we're doing. We're not slating him in at one spot. We'll continue to add pieces, and he'll compete just like the rest of the crew, and we'll see how it shakes out.
Staying on that track, you were asked about you sleep better because you have a quarterback, but you have a situation where you may have to replace 2, maybe 3 starters up front. How vexing does that get you, knowing that that's a big overhaul there?
Yeah, I mean, we got some guys that are free agents that we could bring back, but you're right. If all of them left, we could have 2 to 3 holes. And again, we've done our homework. We'll see what happens in free agency. We'll try and make sure we add a couple of those back if it's not those same guys. Other guys that were coming from other teams, and then the draft. We're focused on those guys. I think there is depth on the line as well, and I think we'll be able to find some value.
How big of a need is defensive tackle, and where do you see Harrison Phillips factoring in next season?
Harrison will compete. He'll come in. He did a good job year one. He'll compete to definitely start. I can't say he'll win it, but Harrison did a great job of bringing depth to us last year. He wasn't asked to start. Obviously, with Kyle gone, not only did we lose a good player, but we lost a leader. So we'll definitely look to add, players along the front. We believe in the pass rush, and if there's a guy in free agency or the draft that we think can help, we'll definitely try and pounce on him.
I know you've talked about having LaShawn McCoy in the picture for 2019. How do you feel about the depth that you have behind him? Yeah, I mean, we got, Chris Ivory and Marcus Murphy, and we had Taiwan last year. We'll see what happens, but no, it's another position that maybe there's competition out there in free agency, or the draft. But if not, we feel that those top 2 guys are guys that have started and played. Chris has started and been a 1,000-yard rusher before, and I thought when Shady missed a few games, I thought Chris came in and did a nice job, and he really brought. They're 2 different style runners. LaShawn's more east-west, and he's going straight 100 miles an hour, whether he runs into you or you get out of the way. So both those guys came in, and again, we're trying to add competition everywhere. We're not shying away from running back either if the right opportunity is there.
Given the success of Lindsey and other guys like him in recent years, do you think teams might be inclined to take some running backs, a few more running backs, 6th, 7th round, rather than, because there's value there, rather than, okay, well, let's roll the dice and hope we get him in undrafted? Yeah,
I mean, I do. That was a great story of what Lindsey did this year. And, no, I think every year there's guys, but it's not just at running back either. I mean, we just talked about Robert Foster, what he did for us. There's been other guys. So, again, guys fall through the cracks for various reasons at various positions. I can't say it's just running back, but obviously you'd love to hit on a guy. Those 6th, 7th rounders, not as many of them pan out, so any of them that you can find that have at least that one trait that will show up on Sundays and keep them on a roster, you'd love to hit on them if it's a running back, receiver, or wherever.
Brandon,
last 2, please.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
When you drafted Josh last year, did the quality of this year's quarterback class factor into that decision? Go for the guy last year.
Yeah, well, we didn't really focus as much on this year as we kind of were in a transition. Sean and I just got here, and we felt that the franchise quarterback was not on our roster at the time, and so we started making moves, traded a few players, and to acquire more picks so that, and we made it hard on ourselves. Sean and his staff did a great job and got us in the playoffs that year, But fortunately, we were able to get high enough to get Josh. And I didn't focus a lot on this draft. It was more, we knew there were some guys, with Darnold and Baker and him and Lamar and Rosen. We knew there was some guys to focus on, and we thought it was the best opportunity to, if we could at least get in the top 10, we'd be able to get a guy that we felt could be a guy for us long term.
In another year, last year was unique with the 5 first-rounders, obviously. In another year, could you see reversing the thought process? How did you weigh going for the quarterback before maybe building the ideal incubator for the quarterback?
Well, it's a quarterback league. It's a premium position. So if you don't have a quarterback, your team is generally a franchise quarterback. Your team's going to do this. It's hard to have sustained success if you don't have a true franchise guy. If you look at the teams that are in the playoffs currently every year, those names don't change. 9 times out of 10, they got a good quarterback. So we thought that was the right chance to get a guy for us long term.